Very good morning, children. Taking a class after a long time. Now, as I have already started in Anandabarta, it's a continuation of that chapter, that is chapter number 2, which will be for your syllabus part. This chapter number 2 I have already started, that is democracy, why democracy, what is democracy, that particular chapter. As per the syllabus or the curriculum of CBSE, you start from for your boards, you start from chapter 2, whereas the chapters which are excluded from the board will be, you will be evaluated over it internally. Clear that those chapters are not left out. Upon those chapters you will be evaluated internally. That means either you will be asked a question, a project, or internal test will be taken. Whereas here these chapters which we are teaching you, this will be your board syllabus. This is the syllabus according to your board. So it's just a recapitulation which I am doing, that I have taught you what is democracy. Democracy is a form of government where the power is in the hands of the people. I have taught you about the features of democracy. What are the different features or what are the characteristics of a democratic state? Together with that, I have discussed about what are the arguments in favor of democracy or against democracy. Why is democracy regarded to be a good form of government, and why is democracy not regarded to be a good form of government? That I have already discussed. Then I have told you that in a democracy, the government is accountable, responsible, and responsive to the people. And in this respect, I have got some queries that what do you mean by why is it known as a legal government, legitimate government? Why is it known as an accountable government? I have answered your queries. You will just see to it. Now, in this chapter, I'll give you some examples to show that a democratic state, some of the countries of the world are democratic in nature because they are having elections and things like that, but they are not thoroughly democratic in nature. One of them, according to them, is Zimbabwe. We are talking about Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe is a country, and this country, it had its first president, Robert Mugabe. And Robert Mugabe, he comes from the party ZANU-PF. But this Zimbabwe is not regarded to be a thoroughly democratic state. The reason is that in this country, ZANU-PF, which is the leading party there, it plays all kinds of dirty tricks. And it plays these dirty tricks to remain in power, which means that it does not allow any opposition parties to win. It does not allow any opposition party to win or to take part in the elections, as a result of which, you cannot call Zimbabwe a thoroughly democratic state, because in a democracy, what you should provide is that you should provide with opposition. Opposition should always be given a chance in a thoroughly democratic state. Again, if you take the case of Mexico, another state, if you take the state of Mexico, here also elections takes place after every 6 years for the election of the president. Again, you cannot call it to be a democratic state. Why? Here the party PRI, that is Institutional Revolutionary Party, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or the PRI, is very powerful. And this Institutional Revolutionary Party, or the PRI, it takes up every measures. It controls the mass media, it controls everything, so that any other opposition party or any criticisms against this party and its government is not tolerated there. You don't get the freedom of the press, mass media, or anything of this sort in Mexico, which means that in Mexico, only the PRI always it gets the power to form the government. No other party. There are examples where this party, what it does, it uses all kinds of dirty measures. For example, I'll tell you, in the very day of election, when people are ready, suddenly they will change the booth. That means the place where people will go and give the vote. They will suddenly pass one message that there will be a change in the position where you will go and give the vote, that is the booth. So it becomes difficult for the people to go and reach out there. So in that case, what happened? All votes votes do take place, but all illegal way. So this party, Institutional Revolutionary Party, it plays all kinds of dirty tricks to remain in power in Mexico. So Mexico also, you cannot call it to be a thoroughly democratic state. Again, if you take the case of China, another state, you know, China, you cannot call it to be a democratic, although in all these countries I'm talking about, elections do take place. As I've talked to you about the features of a democracy, I've told you that elections is a hallmark of a democracy. Hallmark means sign of purity or authenticity. So in all these countries, what happens, you get the chance for elections, but these elections are not thoroughly democratic in nature. As I've told you, in Zimbabwe, the ZANU-PF party, or in Mexico, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, it does not allow any other party to come inside the election game. Then in China, you know, China, you cannot call it to be a democracy, although you have elections after every 5 years. Why? You know, we can call it to be a one-party dictatorship. One-party dictatorship. Why? Because the Chinese Communist Party, CMP, the Chinese Communist Party there, it is very, very powerful there. So for that reason, we are saying that one party. You know what happens? This Chinese Communist Party, that means they believe in the ideology of communism or scientific socialism. Communism is also known as scientific socialism. Scientific socialism. So what happens, you know, this Chinese CCP, Chinese Communist Party, what happens, you know, it never allows any other party which is not socialist or communist in nature to go and take part in the elections. Only there are 8 parties in China, 8 parties, and these parties, you know, they are communist in their ideology, communist or socialist in their ideology. Only these parties are given the tickets to go and contest elections. Any other party following any other ideology is not allowed to take part in the elections. So what happens, if amongst the 8 party, any one party wins, that party is automatically communist or socialist in nature. That means no other party which follows a different ideology means principle, is not allowed to take part in the election. So it is one party dictatorship. So from these examples, you can see that although in these countries you find that elections do take place, but they are not thoroughly democratic in nature. But if you take the example of India, India is regarded to be one of the biggest or largest democratic states in the world. Together with that, you have USA, you have Great Britain. They are also democratic countries in the world. And to conclude this chapter, I'll tell you that, in fact, despite the criticisms I have talked about, there is no alternative for a democratic state. Democratic state so far is regarded to be one of the best forms of state. Clear? And most of the countries today in the world, they are all democratic in nature. So with this chapter 2, that is democracy, why democracy, that chapter, it comes to an end. Thank you.